I need to tell you about the worst phone call of my life. Not because of what was said, because of what I heard in the background. About a year ago, I was going through a rough patch, and I started calling my sister every night before bed, just to talk, just to hear a familiar voice. She lived alone in a small house about 3 hours from me. She'd just gone through a divorce, and she wasn't doing great either. So every night around 10 or 11, I'd call. We'd talk for 20 or 30 minutes about nothing, and then we'd say goodnight. It became routine. I looked forward to it. She did too. For a few weeks, it was the most normal, boring, comforting thing in the world. One Thursday night, I called her at the usual time. She picked up. She sounded a little off. Not upset, just distracted, like she was listening to something. I asked her if she was okay. She said, "Yeah, sorry." She thought she heard something outside, but it was probably nothing. A raccoon or something. She'd been hearing noises for a few nights now. Scratching on the siding, branches moving. She said the house backed up to a wooded area, and animals were always getting into things. We kept talking. Normal stuff. Work, our mom, what she was watching on TV. About 10 minutes into the call, she paused mid-sentence. "Hold on," she said. "Did you hear that?" I hadn't heard anything. I told her no. She was quiet for a few seconds. Then she said it sounded like someone was on the porch, like a footstep on the wood. She laughed a little and said she was probably being paranoid. We kept talking. But something changed after that. I could hear it in her voice. She was distracted. She kept trailing off mid-sentence. At one point, I heard her lock the back door. She didn't mention it. She just did it quietly. She didn't want me to notice. About 15 minutes later, I heard something on the phone. It wasn't her. It wasn't background noise. It was a sound that didn't belong. A faint exhale, like someone breathing out slowly through their mouth. Very close to the phone. Not on her end, on the line itself. Like there was a third person listening. I stopped talking. I waited. There it was again. A quiet, steady breath. In, out. In, out. So faint you'd miss it if you weren't paying attention. But it was there. Someone was on the line with us. I said her name. She said what? I told her to listen. I told her to stop talking and just listen. She went quiet. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Then she whispered, "Oh my God." She heard it too. Someone was breathing on the line. Not a crossed wire, not static. Breathing. Rhythmic and deliberate. Like someone holding a phone to their face, listening to every word we said. My sister's voice changed instantly. The color drained out of it. She whispered that she thought someone had been listening for a while. That sometimes on our calls, she heard faint sounds she'd been ignoring. Clicks. Tiny shifts. Things she wrote off as bad signal. I told her to hang up and call 911. She said, "Okay." The line went dead. I called her back immediately. No answer. I called again. No answer. I called 5 more times in a row. Nothing. I have never felt panic like that in my life. I grabbed my keys and I drove. 3 hours in the middle of the night. I called the police in her town from the road. I told them my sister wasn't answering and I was worried about her safety. They said they'd send someone to check. I was about 40 minutes away when my phone rang. It was her. She was okay. She was shaking and crying, but she was physically okay. She told me that after she hung up with me, she called 911. While she was on the phone with the dispatcher, she heard a sound from the back of the house. Not outside. Inside. In the spare bedroom at the end of the hall. The officers arrived within minutes. They searched the house. The spare bedroom window was open. It had been closed when she went to bed. The screen was pushed out. There were muddy shoe prints on the carpet leading from the window to the hallway and back. Someone had been inside her house. They didn't find anyone on the property. Whoever it was had left through the window, probably the moment they heard her calling 911. But they found something else. In the spare bedroom, on the floor near the bed, there was a phone. A cheap, prepaid phone. The kind you can buy at any gas station. It was still on. The last number it had dialed was my sister's landline. Not her cell, her landline. The one with the older system. The kind where, if someone picks up another handset on the same line, they can listen to the conversation without either party knowing. This person had been in her house, in the spare bedroom, picking up the extension, listening to us talk, night after night. Our conversations about work, about mom, about her divorce, about her fears, about being alone. They had been lying in the bed in the dark, holding the phone to their ear, breathing, while my sister sat in the living room 20 feet away, thinking she was safe. When the officers looked more closely at the spare bedroom, they found other things. The bed had been slept in, not recently made, actually used, repeatedly. There were impressions in the pillow, long dark hairs that didn't belong to my sister. A glass of water on the nightstand, half empty, with a ring of condensation beneath it. Someone hadn't just been listening in that room, they had been living in it. Coming in through the window after my sister went to bed, sleeping there, leaving before she woke up. My sister told me later that for the past few weeks, she'd been noticing small things. The back door would be unlocked when she was sure she'd locked it. A blanket on the spare bed looked different than how she'd left it. Food would go missing from the fridge, just small amounts, a few slices of deli meat, a yogurt. She'd blamed herself, thought she was being forgetful. She wasn't being forgetful. Someone was eating her food, sleeping in her spare room, and listening to our phone calls every single night. And the thing that breaks me is that I was on the phone with her. I was right there, and I didn't notice until it was almost too late. The police never identified who it was. No prints on the phone, no DNA, no witnesses. The muddy shoe prints led to the tree line behind the house and disappeared. My sister moved out that week. She lives with me now. We still talk every night, but we don't do it on the phone anymore. We sit in the same room, and sometimes, in the middle of a conversation, one of us will stop talking and listen. Just for a second. Just to make sure the only breathing we hear is our own. If you like these kinds of stories, please subscribe because it really means a lot to me. I lived in the same apartment for 3 years, 3rd floor end of the hallway, Unit 3F. I knew that apartment better than I knew anything. I knew which floorboard creaked by the bathroom. I knew which cabinet didn't close all the way. I knew exactly how many steps it took from the front door to the bedroom. 14. One night I came home late from a friend's house. It was after 2 in the morning. I was tired. I'd had a couple drinks, but I wasn't drunk. I took the elevator up, walked down the hall, put my key in the lock, and went inside. The apartment was dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I'd done this 1,000 times. I knew the layout. I kicked off my shoes by the door, walked through the living room, went down the short hallway and got into bed. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't change clothes. I just lay down and closed my eyes. I woke up about an hour later. Something felt wrong. The bed felt wrong. The pillow felt wrong. The smell was wrong. My apartment smells like the candle I keep on the bookshelf. Vanilla. This didn't smell like vanilla. This smelled like laundry detergent, a different brand than mine. I opened my eyes. It was dark, but not my dark. The window was on the wrong side. The ceiling fan was there, but it was a different shape. The walls were closer. The room was smaller. This was not my apartment. I sat up slowly. My heart started pounding. I looked around the room and nothing was familiar. Different furniture, different curtains, a dresser where my desk should be, pictures on the wall that I didn't recognize, a jacket draped over a chair that wasn't mine. I was in a stranger's apartment, in their bed. The adrenaline hit me like ice water. I swung my legs off the bed as quietly as I could and stood up. My feet touched carpet. My apartment has hardwood floors. I was definitely not in my unit. I needed to get out right now, before whoever lived here woke up and found a stranger standing in their bedroom. I took a step toward where I thought the door was, and I heard breathing, not my breathing, someone else's, coming from the other side of the bed, slow, steady, the deep, rhythmic breathing of a person sound asleep. Someone was in the bed. I had been lying next to them for an hour. My entire body went rigid. I couldn't see them in the dark. I could only hear them. Whoever lived in this apartment had been asleep when I crawled into their bed. They hadn't woken up. They didn't know I was there. Or maybe they did know, and they were waiting. I didn't let myself think about that. I moved toward the bedroom door, slowly, one foot in front of the other. The carpet muffled my steps. I reached the hallway. I could see a faint glow from a nightlight near the bathroom. Then I saw the second bedroom door. It was cracked open. There was a small bed inside, a kid's bed with a kid in it. I had broken into someone's home, a family's home. I was standing in their hallway in the middle of the night, 10 feet from their sleeping child. I felt like I was going to throw up. I moved to the front door. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely grip the deadbolt. I turned it. It clicked open. I pulled the door and stepped into the hallway. And then I understood. I was on the second floor, not the third. The hallway looked almost identical. Same carpet, same lighting, same layout. But the unit numbers on the doors were different. I was standing in front of 2F, not 3F. My key had worked on their door. That's the part that still makes me sick. The key to Unit 3F had opened the lock on Unit 2F. The building was old. The locks were old. And apparently in old buildings this can happen. The pins wear down, the tolerances loosen. A key that shouldn't fit somewhere starts fitting. No one checks. No one notices. Until someone walks into the wrong apartment at 2 in the morning and climbs into bed next to a complete stranger. I went upstairs to my actual apartment. I locked the door. I sat on the floor in the dark for about 20 minutes trying to stop shaking. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I went to the building manager's office and told him what happened. I didn't tell him I'd gotten into the bed. I just said I'd accidentally entered the wrong unit and that the key worked on both doors. He changed the locks that afternoon. I never told the people in 2F. I thought about it. I thought about knocking on their door and explaining, but what would I even say? I was in your apartment last night. I was in your bed. I was lying next to you for an hour while you slept. Your child was in the next room. There's no version of that conversation that doesn't end with someone calling the police. So I stayed quiet. And every time I passed that door on the second floor, my stomach turned. Every time I saw the woman who lived there checking her mail in the lobby, I felt a wave of shame so thick I couldn't breathe. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The thing I can't stop thinking about. If my key worked on their door, whose key works on mine? How many times has someone put their key in my lock at 2 in the morning, turned it, and walked inside? How many times has someone stood in my hallway in the dark while I slept? How many times has someone been 10 feet from my bed, realized their mistake, and left without me ever knowing? Or what if they didn't realize it was a mistake? I moved out 2 months later. New building, new locks, new everything. I told one friend about what happened. Just one. He didn't say much at first. Then he asked me something that made the rooms spin. He said, "What if it's happened before? What if someone else in that building has a key that works on another unit? What if someone knows their key works on someone else's door and they've been using it?" I hadn't thought about that. But now I think about it every day, because here's the truth. When I was lying in that bed, in that stranger's apartment in the dark for an entire hour, the person next to me didn't wake up, didn't move. They didn't flinch. They didn't react to the weight shifting on the mattress or the sound of someone breathing next to them. Either they are the heaviest sleeper in the world, or they were used to it. I check the deadbolt 3 times before bed now. I put a chair against the door, and sometimes I lie there in the dark and listen to the silence and wonder if the breathing I hear is just my own.